Hello, 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 everybody. It's your girl Ashley, the amateur expert, coming to you live today for this episode of Asking for a Friend. Super excited about today. If this is your first time tuning in, the concept of the show is to have a candid conversation with an expert to discuss a conversation or a question that you would have that you might not necessarily want to ask publicly in front of a lot of people, asking for your friend. And so this month we are talking about relationships, and we are talking about all things that go in and out of those. So breakups, divorce, and things of that nature. So it is my hope that through these next couple of weeks, we empower people and learn some good information. Thank you guys who have joined us so far, and just waiting for a few more people to join us, as well as our guest. Lawrence, I was just listening to your podcast episode. You guys talked about some good stuff. Who am I looking for? I'm looking for... Perfect. Let's see. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. Perfect. And Rhonda's in the room.
Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Let's get situated here. Welcome, welcome,
Thank you so
Rhonda.
much.
Oh man, this is going to be a good episode. So I'm excited to have you here and talking to us. Actually, I'm going to try to screen record it on my end so that we can keep the comments
Sure.
because they sort of leave us. So hold on one second. Sorry. Happy Friday, happy day before or holiday weekend, right?
Yes. Friday is finally here, ready for the weekend.
So ready. Okay. Oh, I see. Now I can join my live. Perfect. Okie dokie. Hi, everyone. Okay, so welcome to this episode of Asking for a Friend. So, Rhonda, I was talking to my homegirl the other day, my homegirl, aka Ashlee Michelle Eason, and we were discussing, relationships and the inevitable fact that sometimes relationships end. Huh. And so, what people don't discuss is sort of shame and guilt and things of that nature that are sort of tied into it. So, I want to know from your point of view, um, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the guilt and the shame when dealing with a major breakup?
It's really tough. And, I often describe breakups. It's similar to the process of grieving. So it's actually a grief process that you're experiencing when a breakup happens because, you're grieving the relationship,
Mm,
but you're also grieving a future that you thought you might have with this person, right? So we know when we join with somebody, we kind of start thinking long term.
for sure.
And, you're grieving kind of some of those ideas about what the future was going to look like, and also having to accept some uncertainty around that. So it's a challenge, but just like grief, it's a process, and you have to go through it and allow yourself to process and recover from and heal from that grief. It's tough.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me was reconciling all of those feelings at once and in private, right? And so I think a lot of times we're told that like you don't put other people in your business, right? From a young age,
Oh, yes. I
you're
was
taught
taught that
that
too.
you're taught
Yep.
most of what happens in your house stays in
Yep.
your house, so to speak, right?
Family business. Yep.
That's
Yep.
it. And so I think in regards to relationships, depending on what type of relationship you're in, I think people talk to their girlfriends, or they may talk to their pastors, or they might talk to, I mean, some people, which I think I don't agree with, Facebook or the social media, um,
Yes. Yes.
but people have an outlet, right? And they get feedback, and sometimes, they may not be talking to the same level person, right? So a married person talking to a single person, like who are you talking to? Who are you getting your information from?
And your
But
advice from, yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
but I think for me it was difficult because I tried to honor when I once I became married, I tried to honor that you keep the business in the house, right? And so when it came time for me to realize that it was ending, I was like, who do I tell? Should I tell? Um, and so my coping mechanism was isolation.
Hmm.
And so can you speak to that and some of the ways that people healthy ways to cope and maybe not cope while experiencing the loss of a breakup or a person?
So it's tough because I think that for many people that is the go-to. Like if something happens and it's incredibly overwhelming, the thought is like, let me just, be to myself and manage this on my own. And I think it is important to take that time alone to process things. You're going to have to do that. So you can't skip over that step. So, uh, you know, even if you're somebody who tends to really socialize a lot and kind of maybe force yourself out there before you're ready, eventually, at some point, you are going to have to take that time to process it by
Mm.
yourself. So that isolation period might be important to an extent, but we have to be careful with isolation because if you isolate yourself for too long, you can slip into depression and other things can come up, which we don't want. So you want to get your alone time. That is important to process. I think it's critical because sometimes we're getting so many different messages from the media, from family, from friends about what things should look like and how you should even approach grieving over a relationship that it can kind of be information overload. And after a while, you can't even separate your own thoughts from other people's thoughts. And, after a while, you don't even know where you are. So taking time alone is important. However, it is important to make sure that you are staying connected with whether it be family members or close friends. And it may just be friends in this scenario. It just depends on what your situation is personally. But you want to be sure, and this is super critical, that you are surrounding yourself with people who are supportive of you and not just supportive of you in a particular state or a particular situation. So I know that I've worked with a lot of clients who were married and they went through divorce, and some friends became distant, or they didn't understand what happened in the relationship, and so they were kind of iffy, and like those aren't the people that you want to have around right now. So it's important to really be clear and discern, like who do you really want to be in your small inner circle at this point, given everything that's going on. And it may not be family. It may be family in that scenario. That because of what's going on, the interaction may be a bit toxic. So you may just want to distance yourself if that is the case. And maybe instead you surround yourself with a couple of supportive friends that are there to listen and understand the importance of listening and not necessarily fixing the problem. Because a lot of times as friends, we want to like fix things and make it right. But sometimes you just need somebody to talk to and somebody that will just listen to you and just be supportive of you no matter what. So I think that's really important.
That is very good information and feedback. Yes. And I think thinking back about my situation specifically, I I knew so I'd had a few major breakups, right? And so
Yes, yeah.
one of my major breakups, I coped with alcohol, right? And that was bad. Don't suggest anyone do that. Not okay. But I also was isolated. And
Yeah.
so I knew that with my last one that I wasn't going to do that. I was good. I was on a straight path, but my isolation was because I wasn't maybe numb, right? It was a little more real. So I had more time to actually think, talk to myself, and work through some things. Um, and so I guess my next question to you would be reconciling guilt, right? So shame is one thing, and then the guilt that you feel. Um, and I think they may have like a hand in hand sort of
Hmm.
relationship. So I isolated for 5 months, 3 months, I think,
Okay.
before telling like my close circle. There were a few people that knew, but those were the ones that sort of were on the fence. Like they
Okay.
were giving uh, they were hopeful that it wasn't going to end, right?
Sure, sure. Yeah,
So
yeah.
and so their
And that's gonna
feedback,
happen. That's gonna
yeah,
happen. So
their
yeah,
feedback
you'll have that.
was biased, maybe we can say that.
Yes.
And so after I was ready to tell more people, um, then I had to sort of deal with their emotions
Hmm.
about what had happened. And then I began to feel guilty about burdening them with my breakup. How
It's
do you
tough. It's so difficult because I think so much of like the inner work that we have to do just as human beings, period, a lot of it is not even tied to like the tough decisions that we have to make for ourselves, because that's difficult. When you make that kind of a decision and you say, you know what, rubber meets the road, this is it, we're gonna have to go our separate way. That's tough.
Mhm.
But what I would argue is sometimes even tougher is the reactions of people as at the result of our decisions. A lot of times the decisions aren't as hard as we think. It's we're fearful of what people will say or how people will respond or react and how we're going to deal with that. And people can react in many different ways. People
Yep.
may be angry, people may be angry because they feel like, why couldn't you push through and make it work? People might be incredibly sad, which happens too. When people
Hmm.
care about you, they're going to be sad for you.
For sure.
Um, but it's a lot, and sometimes we can kind of put all of everyone's reactions and thoughts kind of on our shoulders, and that's where the guilt comes into play. What I think is really important, though, is to be mindful of the fact that when people are reacting, and this is not just for relationships, in any situation, when you have an experience and you make a decision and, maybe it's popular, maybe it's not, people have their reactions. Their reactions have very little to do with you. And it can be tough to recognize it in the moment because it seems so targeted at you.
Right.
And they may think it's about you. They may genuinely think it's about you. But the reality is their reactions have very little to do with you and your situation and more to do with them and maybe their situations or their experiences or maybe their fears, especially when you talk about breakups and divorce. Sometimes people's minds go to, well, what happens if I get a divorce? Well,
Right.
I didn't expect this. I didn't see this coming. What if that happens to me? What will happen? So that's typically the thought pattern that happens when somebody receives this kind of information about somebody else. So I think it's just important to be mindful of it. You want to be aware of it, of course, but you have to do everything you can not to internalize it because it just doesn't really have anything to do with you.
That's so good. And for me, like I said, it was at the point in which I had already gone through all my healing, or a lot of my healing. And
Yeah.
then freshly sharing someone re-going through their emotions was a total like backlog of emotions for me.
Yeah.
I was like, no, 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 it's okay. I'm fine,
But it's
guys.
still good, but that's still really good because you took the time to at least process in the beginning
Mhm.
what your thoughts and feelings are, and you took some time alone to really think about that, which is very important. The flip side of that, when you don't, you talk about getting turned upside down. You still experience people's feelings when you're in the moment with them, but if you haven't already taken the time to process, it's going to lead you to feel like maybe you didn't make the right decision. Maybe you need to listen to this person. You talk to the next person. Oh, maybe I need to listen to that person. If you're not really firm and clear on the decision that you made, and if you haven't taken the time to process it fully. So even though, we have setbacks, and again, grief is a process that's not linear. So, you go backwards and forwards and it's more like a jungle gym. It's not like a straight line. That's not like a ladder. So it's a process, but I think it's really important and it's really good that you took the time to process it for yourself first.
Yeah, that was, and then even when I posted about having this show, people are like, whoa, because again, this wasn't something that I announced and made a big thing. There are people that were close to me that knew about it. And then, as time progressed, more and more people found out just because things would happen.
Right.
Show up, show up somewhere without the person that they thought you'd be with, then,
Right. Right. Right.
then you
Right.
have to start asking people or
Right. Right.
answering questions. Um, but yes, no, I think that so, okay, so what would be your advice? If you maybe had to break it down into steps, like to deal with the guilt and the shame during a breakup, maybe like a couple of months, maybe like a plan.
So right after a breakup, so let's say you've just broken up with somebody, let's say this week. And so it's very fresh and it's very new. It is important, like we talked about, to make sure that you are taking some time for yourself to process it and that you don't feel pressured to share it with every single person in your network, every single family member, every friend. You don't have to do that. And I know sometimes we feel like when a big event or when something major happens, we need to expose it immediately for whatever reason. We don't have to do that. You don't have to. And to be honest with you, you don't ever have to if you don't want to be completely honest. So I think the first step is just taking time to yourself and not feeling pressured by, again, by other people, by their opinions or what you feel like you may owe someone else. Just taking time for yourself to process is the first step. So if you're really early on, you want to be sure that you do that. Along with that, I think it's really important in the grief process and kind of healing from a relationship that you be really clear with your boundaries with your former partner. That is really, really, really important. Everybody grieves differently. And for some, there may still be a desire to continue a friendship or some other kind of relationship. But I think no matter what your decision is on that, you really want to be clear with your boundaries and you want to have them and you want to know specifically what they are. And in many cases, especially if you've been married, you want to be sure that you are able to clearly communicate those boundaries to your former partner. You don't want to assume that, your boundaries are going to be the same as that person and so on. So you really want to be clear. And if you have to, write things down, because I'm a big fan of writing things down, write down what your boundaries are and really kind of hold yourself accountable. Do your best to stick to those boundaries. You have to have some separation if you're going to heal from a relationship. And again, I know people want to kind of still be cool. And it's not that you can't be cordial, but I still think there's something to be said for having an actual separation, a distancing, and specific boundaries from that person. So that's also really important, because if you don't do that, it'll really prolong some of the pain and the healing's going to take just a lot longer than it really needs to. So that's important. So taking time to yourself is critical. Once you are ready to start, telling family members, friends, what's happened, it's really important that you are clear about who you want to tell first, and why. And you may want to be a bit methodical about that. Again, it's not something you have to, blast or tell to everyone. But again, really being mindful. And I would encourage you to, again, confide in and tell people initially that are supportive, that care about you no matter what.
Right.
And then you just kind of work your way down from there. To be honest, acquaintances, people that you don't know, whether it's colleagues at work, you may not need to ever really make an official announcement about it. And at some point down the road, if it comes up, you could bring it up in conversation. Again, in those situations, I think you want to plan out in advance exactly how you're going to handle that. So know who you're going to tell up front. And then for the folks who I'll just let them find out when they find out. Have a plan, because somebody may ask you, like, did you break up with John? Or I just saw Matthew over here. What's going on?
Right.
Don't wait for that moment to happen, because if you wait for that moment to happen, you're going to be really caught off guard and not know what to say or what to do. So try to kind of have a plan in advance of, okay, if somebody does approach me in public or sends me a random text message or gives me a call and asks me, just kind of have an idea about what you're going to say, how you're going to frame the conversation, and what your boundaries are about what you will and will not share with those people. Because at that point, that's not your inner circle. So you can say as much or as little as you want. You could just say something as simple as, yeah, it didn't work out. That might be all you say. That might be it.
That's great
and
advice.
That's okay.
When I did not have a plan. And so when I was first asked by one of my coworkers, we were walking into the office together. She was like, "Oh my gosh, like, how's everything? How's marriage?" And I was just like, "Over." And she was like, "Huh?" And I was just like, yeah, it didn't work out. But if I would have thought about it, I could have had a better plan, a better response. So that is really good information. And
it's a process, and
Yeah.
it's not always going to be, again, there's no such thing as a perfect breakup or a perfect way to do these things. It's like you learn as you go and you figure it out. You figure out what you're comfortable with sharing, what you're comfortable with talking about, how you want to frame it, where and when. But my point is that you have the power to really set your boundaries on that and to say what you're going to talk about and what you're not going to talk about. And some people will be very intrusive. Well, what happened? Well, did somebody cheat? Did you cheat? Did he cheat? People can be very intrusive when things come up, and people can feel like they somehow can lay claim to your information, or like they're owed that information. They're not owed anything. And again, the same goes for family members, because family members can feel like, oh no, you need to let me know every single detail of exactly what. You don't have to do that. You have the power to do that. We have more power personally, I think, than oftentimes we realize, because different systems that we're a part of, society or our families may say like, oh, we don't do this or we don't do that. We don't get divorced in this family, or we have all these mantras and things going around and around in our heads. But at the end of the day, we have personal choice, no matter what anybody says in any given situation. So you can share what you want. You can partner with someone. You can end that partnership whenever you feel it's appropriate. You have the power to do that. And I think it's important that we really command that power and, really express that in the best way that we feel, in any situation. But we just really have to make sure that we don't forget that, our personal power.
That's really good. Really, really good. So that's 3 steps. Do you have another one for us, or is that?
So I think that's it. And then in terms of just closing it out, once you're a little further along, I think just really, and I shouldn't say further along, I think throughout the whole process, you've got to grant yourself some grace, because we can be really hard on ourselves just in general as human beings, and wanting things to look a particular way. Like I mentioned, wanting a perfect breakup, or, I need to be over this person in 6 months, or these random ideas that we have about exactly what things should look like. I should be dating a year later, or whatever it is. There is no specific formula for everyone to follow. It really needs to be guided by, your inner self. So you've really got to be clear on that, but grant yourself some grace through the process. Nobody is perfect. Nothing is perfect in life. And so I think if you can, throughout the process, really be good to yourself, really take good care of yourself, again, setting boundaries with other people, knowing what you love to do, knowing who you love to be around. All of those things are really important. And it's easy to say, oh, I know what I like. I like whatever. I like doing this and that. But sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we don't know what we can do for ourselves that's really nurturing to take good care of ourselves. It's easy to say we know, but oftentimes I ask people and they're like, they don't know right away. They don't always know. So I actually encourage people to make a list, like a joy list. Make a list of things that bring you joy. It's just a hack, but make a list of things that bring you joy. And then when you're in any given situation where, you're grieving, you're experiencing a lot of pain and discomfort, take a look at that list and do a couple of things on there. Like for me, I know one is I love fresh flowers. Fresh flowers always brighten my mood and make me feel happy. I don't care what the situation is. And it's something small. It's small, but it can be some of those small things that you do. If you do them intentionally every day or every week or every month, whatever it is, it can really make the difference in boosting your mood and helping you get through a difficult situation. So I think very early on, if you can really master being able to take really good care of yourself and not feeling any guilt around that, because you got to take care of yourself. And everybody may or may not understand that, and that's okay. Everyone's not going to understand everything that we experience and every decision that we make. But really being intentional about and unapologetic about taking really good care of yourself throughout this process is really critical.
I love that. That is so important. Yeah, I had to realize early on that I couldn't do French fries every day. French fries bring me joy, but
how do they make you feel? Exactly, right? It might feel good in the moment, but how does it really make you feel?
Yeah, no.
What are you eating? Everything down to like every sense, what are some scents that you enjoy? Mm-hmm. Feelings, if it's like a particular clothing item that you like to wear, that when you wear it, you just feel really good or really empowered. Again, small things, but if you can do it intentionally, it makes a really big difference.
For sure. And one of the things that brought me joy was doing this show. So
Oh,
this is, I thank you for being a part of this. This is a dream come true, literally.
oh,
I've been doing this, I started it literally right at the beginning of my divorce process, or
okay.
like the separation process. And so this has truly dug me out of the sorrow and things. It was the one day out the week that I knew that I had to get myself together. So
Yes.
although it was something that it was very personal to me, and like no one knew what I was going through. This is what was 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 the my source of joy one day of the
Absolutely.
week. So
And this is going to inspire and empower so many people. Like I always feel like when you share your story, you often don't realize the impact that you're having on others. And I think by being transparent in your situation, I think it's really going to help other people. And it's a really awesome way to use your platform. So I know a lot of people will benefit from it for sure.
well, thank you, and I appreciate you for being on the show. I've got so much to share with my homegirl, aka me. Um, I want to give you the chance, though, to share how people can get in contact with you, some of the resources that you offer, and
Sure.
how you can help other people.
Sure, of course. So I am a licensed therapist and relationship expert. So a lot of the services that I provide are around relationship coaching, but I also offer self-care sessions. And especially given everything that's going on right now, I think self-care is really, really important. So I do offer those services on my website, which is rhondasmithlcsw.com. I do those virtually, and you can find me across all social media platforms at Rhonda Smith LCSW.
Perfect. And also, I believe Felicia brought us together. So thank you, Felicia.
Yes, thank you, Felicia. Yes,
Thank you,
yes.
Felicia, for doing that. That is amazing. And so as we're wrapping up, this is going to be awkward, but we have to just smile at the camera for a few seconds because Instagram will allow me to pick a screenshot of the show to be
Yes, and
the,
we want a good one. We
we
don't want
want one
a
where we
weird
don't
one.
look crazy.
Yes, yes, yes.
So on the count of three, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope everyone has a safe weekend and we'll see you next
Have a
week.
safe weekend,
Take
everybody.
care.
Bye.